Things were hot and steamy for the Titans this offseason, and I ain't talking about Will Levis' sex tape. Sorry, bud. They hired a new coaching staff and added a ton of parts on both the offense and defense. So what will this mean for the Titans in 2024? What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So, back again, once again, with the Deep Dive series where we take a close look at each and every NFL team and project how they may fare in 2024. And now it's your Tennessee Titans. Tighten up, baby. But first, let's talk about how their 2023 went. The fall of Ryan Tannehill was rapid, and you almost immediately knew it wasn't going to be a pretty year with him at the helm. He single-handedly cost the Titans the season opener versus the Saints, and while he had a nice bounce-back game versus the Chargers the following week, he and the Titans proceeded to get smoked in Week 3 against the Browns. To be fair, Tannehill wasn't everything wrong with the Titans, as the offense was bad, Treylon Burks was dropping passes, this whole offense was on the struggle bus. They would beat the Bengals in Week 4, but this team was much better at home than it was on the road, with 5 of their 6 wins being in Nashville. They would lose to the Colts and then travel to London and lose a close game against the Ravens. To be honest, they had no business being in. However, Tannehill would get hurt in that game. After their bye week, Will Levis would make his debut and look great in a victory against the Falcons. He did an alright job for the remainder of the season, but this offensive line just kept letting the team down. Even King Henry himself was struggling, and they would lose against the Steelers, Bucks, and Jags. They would get a win over a bad Panthers team, and arguably they should have beat the Colts, but unfortunately the special teams hit the fan. But they would win a thriller in Miami, but Levis would get banged up in the loss against the Texans the following week. Tannehill would get the start in Week 16 against the Seahawks, and it was a rough game for him. Levis would get the start in Week 17, but once again had to exit because of an ankle injury, and they would just shut him down for the remainder of the season. The Titans would end the season 6-11, and Mike Vrabel would be given his walking papers. However, the defense was relatively solid aside from their coverage. They had the best red zone defense in the league, so Vrabel definitely did the best that he could. Ultimately, he couldn't overcome the costly turnovers or the inability to get touchdowns in scoring position. Real quick, I gotta give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. I absolutely love Underdog Fantasy because I love football, and now that the football season is far and away, it doesn't mean my betting season has to be, because they do all kinds of sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, esports even. They got you covered, whether that's weekly best ball or my favorite, higher lower on player props. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code BROSHMO, then they will give you a first time deposit up to $250. That's right. That's right. So if you're gonna go and bet with Underdog Fantasy, use promo code BROSHMO, take advantage of this offer, but please bet responsibly and bet within your means. There was a bit of an overhaul this offseason, roster-wise, as you saw guys like Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill leave via free agency, but they did lose some significant snaps like Danico Autry, had Aaron Brewer, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Azeez Al-Shaair. But let's look at what they added in free agency. As their biggest addition, well, most expensive addition, was Calvin Ridley, as they paid him 4 years, $92 million with $50 million guaranteed. And I get it, they overpaid a little bit for him, but they had the funds, they had the means to do so. They get a very good, in my opinion, a high-end number 2. I think arguably, I don't think he's never been a high-end number 1 receiver in the league, even going back to like 2021, 2019. I always felt like he was more of a maybe a low-end number 1, but here I think he really can be that high-end number 2 next to D-Hop, and I really like this. Go out and surround your seemingly franchise quarterback with talent so you can come to the conclusion, is he or is he not the guy? I think that is a winning formula, because it allows you to come to those conclusions much quicker and not Daniel Jones yourself. Shots fired, I know. Sorry. How about this? Since we're in the AFC South, let's do this. and it allows you not to Trevor Lawrence yourself. I like Trevor Lawrence. They also added Tony Pollard, who, for the most part, I think this is going to be his backfield, but it will be treated more like a committee. But I do think Pollard probably edges out Tajay Spears in terms of snaps, but they do very similar things. Breakaway speed. They add an element to the passing game as receivers. 3 years, $24 million, $8 million a year. Honestly, isn't that bad for... You can make an argument, maybe a top 15 running back in the league. Did I call these guys receivers? If I did, whoops. But running back in the league. So now, I think that's fine. You just lose Derrick Henry. You just add a little bit more pizzazz to that backfield. But they didn't stop adding there as they went out and got Lloyd Cushenberry, which I do think is a big upgrade over Aaron Brewer. And that's not me being a hater. I'm a Miami Dolphins fan. Cool, Aaron Brewer is going to be a good run blocker, but God rest to his soul, because I do not like Aaron Brewer as a pass protector. Regardless, I think Cushenberry is an upgrade, and it's going to help overhaul that line a little bit. We'll talk about some of the other positions they try to overhaul on the offensive line. So I like where they went there. Didn't even mention Tyler Boyd coming to town, who's familiar with Brian Callahan. So he's going to come in and be the starting slot. Though there are going to be some guys when we get to the offense who could also sneak in for some playing time and see some volume in the passing game. Talking about the defense. Defense had some big additions. Sebastian Joseph Day is more of these low end, good value, reliable vet. He's going to come in and play there next to Jeffrey Simmons. They do have T'Vondre Sweat, but I think for the most part, you're going to see a good, healthy rotation with him and some of the other guys that they have there, like Marlon Davidson and such. I think they got also Bohanna. We'll talk about the defense when we get there, but I like the versatility of Sebastian Joseph Day. So I think that's a solid depth piece to this defensive line. They also went out and got Chidobe Awuzie. Where you at? Right there. There you are. Which I like. You might be like, well, I guess, yeah, it makes sense. He's familiar with Brian Callahan, who's an offensive-minded coach. It's fine. Denard Wilson also saw Awuzie twice a year being in the AFC North. Awuzie, good corner, unfortunately, coming off an injury last year. You're probably waiting and expecting for that play to start dropping off. I think, need not worry, they traded and paid L'Jarius Sneed. Arguably got a top 5, top 3 corner in the NFL. I like the additions here in coverage, mainly at the corner position, which kind of was banged up last year as you had Sean Murphy-Bunting missing a couple of games. Christian Fulton just can't stay healthy, and he was kind of not great last year. So those are 2 big additions, with Sneed obviously, I think, being the bigger addition. But I like that. I like what they did there. They also bring in Kenneth Murray. Not a fan of that one. In my opinion, he just hasn't been a very good player in the NFL. He's a very good athlete, but I feel like at this point, it's just not going to click with him. He's probably better depth than being an actual starter. So I don't love that pickup there. What else they got cooking here as they bring in Sadiq Charles as depth, the guy that's played on both sides of the offensive line as a guard. So cool, I like that. But let's talk about what they did via this draft, as they had 7 picks and they go with JC Latham at pick 7. For the longest time, everyone and their mom was projecting Joe Alt to be there at 7. He ends up going at 5. JC Latham, there's a lot of late rumors that he was going to be a top 10 pick. He ends up going to 7. A lot of people liked him, and I don't mind it. This was a very good tackle class, and think I had him outside of my top 20. So does it feel like a bit of a reach at 7? Yeah, but it was a very studied class. He's got great size. I think he moves well. Doesn't exactly have that killer instinct in the run game, despite being a massive human being who is stupid strong. But I'm okay with it. You do move him to left tackle, which will be interesting, but I think it'll be fine. I think they'll make it work, and I'm okay with it. I can understand it. And plus, I mean, the Titans, they have Brian's daddy, Bill Callahan there, so I can argue with that. That is essentially the offensive line guru. I ain't gonna argue with it. T'Vondre Sweat, though, was a bit of a surprise. Now, if this was before his DUI, this was well within the range that probably someone would take him. But the DUI, a lot of people anticipated him to fall down the board a little bit, because also he had a bit of a history his first couple of years of college of being a party animal. So that it wasn't a good look this draft cycle. But there's no denying, like, the guys with his size that are able to push the pocket the way he does, they are few and far between. So he gives them something, honestly, they've been missing out on. Like, they've tried to plug in that big and meaty nose tackle position the last few years with guys and have got minimal success. So, okay, you take a couple of shots with your first 2 rounds, and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. Because you know, at the end of the day, like, they're good players. They're good players. They were, and if you take the DUI out of account, they would arguably, wow, words, would have been all top 40 players. So it's like, it works for me. Then you get to round 4. Cedric Gray had a 3rd round. I think I had a 3rd round or early 4th round grade on him. Regardless, he went early 4th. I like him a lot. I think he did a lot of things well. He was tasked with a lot on his plate there at North Carolina. They gave him a lot of responsibilities. If anything, this is the guy if I'm the Titans fans, hoping beats out stinking Kenneth Murray. They then go to the corner well with Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Now, probably going to not start, but is probably going to contend for that slot spot, but I think he can play on the outside. Doesn't have ideal size, but the dude's a competitor. He's feisty. He kind of blew up at the Senior Bowl. Was a big fan of him. I actually had a 3rd round grade on him. I mean, this was a stud. This was a really good class in terms of talent. So, again, the Titans getting him at 146 is just exceptional value. You can make another case for pick 182. Jaquan Jackson, who is, yeah, he's an undersized receiver, probably a slot, but dude's freaking just quick out of his mind. He brings return capabilities. While the production never really was there in college, you still see the athletic ability. He's going to contend, I think, for that for a wide receiver 4 or 5 spot there. Which, well, okay, more so 5 or 6, because they do have Nick Westbrook, who's, I think, firmly going to be the 4. But he's going to contend there with a guy like Treylon Burks, he offers something different. He's more of a bigger player who can play on the outside. But it's like Kenny Phillips. That's going to be the position that Jackson's going to contest for. And honestly, availability is the best ability, the best trait to have, and unfortunately, just Phillips hasn't had it. They end up drafting James Williams and Jalen Harrell in the 7th round. James Williams, they list him at linebacker. Great, he's going to be a project in that regard. Formerly played safety, but he's got the size to play linebacker. I liked him out of W. And then Harrell, who is a little undersized and more of a speed rusher. But I do like that addition because I do feel like the times we're missing a little zest there on the outside, a little burst, a little explosiveness. So even if he is just used firmly as a DPR very early in his career, the first year, 2 or 3 years, I'm totally okay with that. I think this was a very solid draft class for the Tennessee Titans, and dude, they have the potential, honestly, to have 3 starters with their first 3 picks. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about this coaching staff. So Brian Callahan gets his first shot to be a head coach in the NFL. And this is a cat that, honestly, I thought should have got a head coaching job the year prior. But here he is now in what I think is a very good situation with the Tennessee Titans. If you're unfamiliar with Brian Callahan, not only is he the son of Bill Callahan, but he was formerly the Bengals offensive coordinator, though it was Zach Taylor calling the plays, but Brian Callahan was doing the play designing along with the run game coordinator there over in Cincinnati. So this will be his first go as like a full-time play caller offensively, and honestly, I think he will be up to the challenge. He was also formerly the Lions and Raiders QB coach. And what he brings to the table, or at least what we've seen, because we did see Zach Taylor's offense kind of evolve over the last few years, as Zach Taylor was kind of came from that wide zone, outside zone, heavy blocking scheme, and how they kind of morphed more into a like pro spread, hike it out of shotgun, more man and gap concepts, a little pin and pull, and became a little more RPO heavy. And I think that's what we're going to see here in Tennessee, because essentially you're working with a rookie quarterback. Granted, yes, he started Will Levis started like half the season last year. But for the most part, yeah, okay, this is Will Levis's first year under Brian Callahan. He's probably going to coddle him a little bit and just kind of get him acclimated to this offense and find ways to protect him. That's why you bring in playmakers like Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Tony Pollard. So it makes all the sense in the world to me. So I like that. I like that quite a bit. You got Nick Foles here as the OC. I'm sure he's going to do some of the play designing, but for the most part, yes, this is Callahan's offense. But Foles is formerly the Jaguars passing game coordinator. Prior to that, he was UNLV's offensive coordinator. That's right, Rebels, go, go, go. And prior to that, he was a position coach with the Raiders, and he was there a hell of a long time. I think, for like 9 years? So now he gets his break to be an OC and learn from Brian Callahan in that regard. Down below, you're going to see my grades for essentially the coaches here. My coaching grades, my coaching ranks, as the run offense, the pass offense, they're Bs. Again, this is Brian Callahan's kind of like first year as the play caller, but I have no problems in terms of his play design. So I'm anxious. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here with how high I may be on Callahan. Moving to the defense, we are dealing with a first-time DC with Denard Wilson, and I don't have grades for him because, again, I mean, the dude was a position coach prior to essentially this is his first gig as a DC. He was D-backs makes it sound like Diamondbacks, defensive backs coach out of there with the Ravens under Mike McDonald. He was also a defensive backs coach with the Eagles under Jonathan Gannon. He was there with the Jets and the Rams. So when it comes to what to expect off or defensively, I imagine it's going to be exactly what we saw from McDonald last season. There's a reason why so many of his position coaches have defensive coordinator jobs now. Like you had the Ravens promote Zach Orr. You had the Dolphins pick up Anthony Weaver as their DC, Denard Wilson here, and now Mike McDonald. he has a head coaching job. So yeah, the NFL really loved what Mike Macdonald did defensively last season, and it was kind of wild because he followed. So he was kind of right after like Wink Martindale there, and you would expect maybe like they would do things a little bit similar. Wink Martindale, he loves his man coverage. He loves getting pressure with extra blitzers, and Macdonald kind of reeled back on that sucker. Like he was more of this like quarters match coverage. He did essentially run the odd front 3-4, but he was very tactical with his blitzes. And I mean, you saw that like his blitz rate last season was 25th in the NFL at 21.9. Though if you were to look on third down, I think it was inside the top 10 in terms of the blitz rate. So it was like, yeah, okay, he tried to find on early downs other ways to get home, and maybe for the most part, if you can create coverage sacks. But when it got to that third down, he was willing to bring the house. Like he was 6th in cover 0 last season. So I do anticipate, especially with this pass rush or lack thereof, talk about it when we get to the defense, that we will see a little bit of more of that aggression, or we'll see that similar aggression on third downs and maybe even on early downs. Maybe we'll see Wilson get a little more aggressive early on. Maybe he pulls a little bit from Gannon, who picked the mind of Vic Fangio, because we do see Fangio style stuff, but Fangio's way more bend and don't break. I'm never gonna send the house at all type of coordinator. But I'm excited. Don't have grades for him, being a first time defensive coordinator, so we're gonna have to wait and see. But I don't mind them going to that well. Shoot, my Miami Dolphins went to that well with Anthony Weaver, so we'll see how it works out. But let's take a look at some of the other coaches on the staff here. You have the aforementioned Bill Callahan, the father of Brian Callahan. Again, offensive line coach, offensive line guru. He's spent the last 3 or 4 years in Cleveland. And fun fact, Cleveland offensive line, phenomenal. They've done a very good job also at developing talent. Remember what Ethan Posick was prior to showing up in Cleveland? There were traits. The production wasn't there. So I'm very excited to see what he does with this offensive line. To be fair, I'm not familiar with too many of these guys. They do have Luke Stalker, which it's great to see him back. Typically when you have a change in the coaching staff, that means like 75 to 90% of those coaches, there's going to be some big turnover. But he's still here as an assistant tight ends coach. I love that. When it comes to the defense, they have Chris Harris, who I really liked as a corner in the NFL back in the day. I just love former players becoming coaches. I just like that, and I like it quite a bit. You do have Steve Donatel, the son of Ed, here as a defensive assistant, along with Lori Locust, who's done a very solid job as a defensive quality control coach. But for the most part, not too familiar with a lot of these guys. Anthony Levine Sr., he's an assistant special teams coach. Again, another former player. I love that stuff. I just love it. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about this offense and how Will Levis might look in year 2. You'll notice the green text, and you probably deduced that those are players that are new arrivals, new additions to the team. And I also have grades for the position group as a whole. Let's start with the quarterback, as Will Levis was a cat that, he started like 8 or 9 games last season going into year 2. So yeah, we haven't necessarily seen a ton of him, so it's hard to necessarily project him. But I think we saw a lot of signs of encouragement. As long as you keep them ankles healthy, buddy. As long as you keep them ankles healthy. They do bring in Mason Rudolph as the backup. Is that an upgrade? Could be, maybe. Probably. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was pretty washed by the end of the year, by the beginning of the year, honestly. So yeah, the position group's not going to have a good grade there at quarterback. I gave it a D+. Typically, my rookie or teams that have rookie quarterbacks are going to be grading around that vicinity. Rookie or year one starters that weren't CJ Stroud. And then going to the running back, I got Tony Pollard as the starter. I do think he's probably going to edge out Tajay Spears in snaps. Spears going into the draft cycle, a lot of people after the medicals came out kind of deemed him as a one contract type of guy. I can't remember specifically. It was something along with the knee. Maybe it was like the lack there of an ACL. I don't know if it was similar to like Peyton Wilson, the linebacker at NC State during this past draft cycle. But regardless, like Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, I'm very happy with that group there. They're B- for me in terms of the position, and they're going to be honestly behind hopefully a much improved offensive line that'll see J.C. Latham as the starter at left tackle. And I'm going to go with Dylan Radins as the right tackle, or at least the starter at right tackle. I'm sure they wanted to be Nicholas Petit-Frere, but I don't think he's shown anything for me to buy into him being the starter. I mean, he's a guy with tools and traits. That's about it. Like, Radins, was he great at pass protection? Like, he was maybe slightly better than Petit-Frere, but I think where he edges out Petit-Frere is what he can do in the run game, which they're gonna lean into that. They really, really are. You got Skoronski there, year 2 starter. Absolutely love him. I think he's gonna take that next jump up there at left guard. Daniel Brunskill, solid piece on that offensive line. Is he going to wow you? Not necessarily, probably not. But if he is like your 4th or 5th best player on the offensive line, which to be fair, he might be their 3rd, then you're probably feeling at least your offensive line is trending in the right direction with Lloyd Cushenberry now coming in as the center. I kind of already went off on him, feeling like an upgrade to Aaron Brewer. When it comes to the weaponry, your starters, it's going to be a D-Hop. Listen, is it D-Hop Prime? No, it's not. But still, D-Hop's still hella good. He was still eating last season. He was still eating good. He knows how to get open. He can win contested catch situations. And now you bring in the speed, the looseness of a Calvin Ridley there opposite of him. Tyler Boyd, someone who has been honestly pretty dependable in the slot over the course of his career, who's going to come in here and once again function as wide receiver 3. I like that. Chig Okonkwo, hopefully now that we might have a little bit more consistency potentially at quarterback, you can finally pop off. He was someone I really liked coming out of Maryland. I don't think they've gotten as creative with him as they could have, because like at Maryland, he did some good jobs as a down blocker, lining up at like fullback. So like get creative with him. I would love to see it. But those are who I think are going to be your lead snap getters on the offense. Let's kind of go into the depth of this team offensively. Let's start with the offensive line, because we got Sadiq Charles. He's going to be probably your go-to backup at guard. Apart from if maybe Radins, maybe he is going to end up being the backup at guard. I mean, honestly, Nicholas Petit-Frere can do that as well. Like, I honestly thought he was going to start as a guard in the NFL. But regardless, like, honestly, any of those 3 guys, I think are solid backups. So I feel like you're good at the guard position in terms of what do you have in the tank. Leroy Watson comes over via trade from Cleveland, so someone who Bill Callahan is familiar with, coming over from Cleveland and whatnot. Hasn't had a lot of work in the NFL, but we'll see. He is gonna be your probably your first go at backup tackle. Last year, I think he played like 60 some snaps. Oh wow, he played 60 on the dot. But he did play both sides. When they had injuries. If you do remember, they did have Cleveland had quite a bit of injuries at tackle last season. Jalen Duncan, he's developing. You pray to the good Lord that he will not see many starting snaps next season. He's again a guy that they're just kind of developing. Center, I mean, I honestly kind of hope that UDFA Cole Spencer gets in there. I wasn't a big fan of Gadlin out of Liberty during the draft cycle. He didn't test well either. So, like, I think that this guy has just practice squad written all over him. Couldn't tell you much about Dooley. So, sorry, not sorry, I guess. They do have, was it Andrew Rupich? I feel like I didn't say that right. He has seen minimal snaps during his, I guess, short career thus far, but someone that they have there who really is probably no more than a backup level player. Move into the let's go to the tight end position as Josh Wiley. I liked him coming out of Cincinnati. He's got some bunnies to him. He's another guy that's got a bit of a versatile body type, but as a blocker, it's like kind of bare bones. Like, it's okay. It is what it is. So I don't feel like they're going to be getting a lot of blocking from their tight end position. Nick Vinette, kind of a journeyman at this point. Gonna be honest, not quite familiar with the guys after that. Not familiar with was it Stylianos and Martin Robertson? Didn't go over them during the draft cycle, so they're kind of just no idea what they are. You got Thomas. I'm gonna call him Thomas O. Not familiar with him. He's part of the international pathway program, so it's probably a developmental guy, but that's fine. Those are guys fighting for tight end 4 on the squad. Let's talk about these playmakers. Starting with the running back position, I don't wish ill will on anybody, but I'm just not a fan of Hassan Haskins. I don't think he's good enough really to be on an NFL roster. I don't know how many of y'all may agree with me with that. Like, oh, but he's a big bruiser. Yeah, he's to me, he's a replaceable player. I didn't even like him that much coming out of the 2022 class. I thought he was overdrafted. Julius Chestnut's there as well. Honestly, I think this could be a chance for, I think Dylan Johnson actually sticks to the roster. Being a UDFA out of Washington. Bruiser, who also played in Mike Leach's air raid when he was at Texas A&M at the start of his career, and was actually a very solid pass catcher, but he also brings the juice as a pass protector. I think there is a way he ends up being running back 3 on this roster. Jabari Small, he's small. He's just kind of whatevs. So yeah, I mean, I think there's 3 guys there. Chestnut's kind of fine as a running back 4. Looking at the wide receiver depth, Nick Westbrook, he is going to be your wide receiver 4. Unless Treylon Burks, man, like unfortunately, he's kind of had a bad go out of it, like right from the get-go, being essentially a part of that AJ Brown trade, and then kind of being starting off his career a little bit slow, and then right when he has that like big game, he ends up getting hurt. Had to deal with I can't remember if it was a concussion or a neck injury last year. So like, yeah, the coaching staff like, hey man, he's got to learn special teams if he wants to really make this roster. It's just unfortunate. It truly is, and wish the best for him, man. I thought he was a big slot coming out of Arkansas there, and he can still function in that way, like for this squad. But Westbrook is gonna be the wide receiver 4 here, a very crafty, deep man. I do think Jackson's going to stick to the roster. I think he's going to come in there as wide receiver 6, potentially wide receiver 5. I do really only see him as a slot only with return capabilities. And again, probably ends up being out Kyle Phillips just because of the whole availability factor. Phillips has just been banged up since entering the league. I know Mason Kinsey has a nice following there among Tennessee fans, but just kind of feels like a guy that's just practice squad, will get called up when injuries happen. Colton Dole, though, He was coming out of, was it Tennessee Tech? Like, he was a guy that came out with interesting size and interesting athletic profile. So maybe someone to watch. Maybe doesn't necessarily make this roster, but someone definitely to watch out for. Kyrus Jackson was coming out of Georgia as a UDFA. He's just kind of size and speed and not much else. Couldn't really tell you about the other guys there, Harrison, Oliver, and is that Sknee? But all in all, end of the day, I feel like this offense, I gave them a C grade overall. I feel like they'll creep to that average standpoint and maybe even higher. Maybe they get into that like B minus range, depending on the coaching, depending on how Brian Callahan is in year one of being a play caller. So I'm very, very excited about this offense. Let's go ahead and move to the defense. As again, man, I'm gonna go with Sebastian Joseph Day as the lead snap getter there. Not the lead snap getter, but I think he's gonna beat out Devondre Sweat in terms of snaps. I think Sweat with him coming out, it was hard to really say that he's not a 3-down player. You know that. So he's going to be someone that's going to be very involved in the rotation, but his ability to be a pass rusher at that size is very valuable. So he is going to be very involved. I think him and Joseph Day are going to be very close in snap totals. I mean, shoot, I think Joseph Day had like 700 snaps to his name last season. But of course, you have Jeffrey Simmons, who is just a freaking monster, man. Truly is. He is a very solid run defender, but what he does as a pass rusher, man, really bringing the heat. Not on that like elite level, but I think he's a guy like that's knocking at that door, could find himself in that top 5 of the league. So I do like the potential rotation there. We'll get into the depth in a little bit. When it comes to the pass rushers, I'm a little let down by. If I'm going to be honest, like Harold Landry is fine at best. I think he's more of a edge 2. And I think you could probably say the same about, Arden Key. He's more of an edge 2. They don't have that guy. They don't have a top 15 edge rusher in the league. They honestly just don't. So like I think those guys are fine enough run stuffers for the most part, like good enough to do their job. I do worry a little about with Arden Key, but that's neither here or there. Like overall, I think this run unit will be in probably around like 20th in the league, with the chance of maybe even being a little bit lower than that. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. When it comes to the pass rush, I think they're very hurt by just the unknown variable when it comes to Sweat. Again, he's a rookie, so you're kind of projecting him. Love Simmons, but no, outside of that, like your pass rush is it's Landry. Like even when Vrabel was here, like a big part of his thing was scheming things up, and like just making the offense see a lot of different looks, mixing it up, keeping them on ice skates, keeping them on their heels. So we'll see what Wilson will do with this squad, but I'm reeling back on that, and it's kind of wild because like going into this, like at the beginning of the video I talked about this team in 2023 and how their weakness was the coverage unit, and I feel like that now that is a bit of a strength for the squad. I mean, when you add a top 5 corner, okay, this is gonna fly up. But they also go out and get a very solid veteran in Awuzie, and Roger McCreary has been very solid as a slot player. So I think they're looking really good at the wide receiver at the corner position. But I mean, think about what Sneak can do as a run defender and a pass rusher as well. Like that's what Kansas City did. They got him around the line of scrimmage to go make plays like on 3rd down. And I think if they tap into that, which they should, if this is going to be anything like Mike McDonald's defense, then watch out, 3rd down. they're going to bring some heat. And honestly, probably their run defense grade should be a little bit better, should be a little bit higher, just simply because of what Snead brings to the table. But also they're pulled down a little bit by your like Kenneth Murray. I'm not confident in him as a run defender. This is a guy that gets fooled by misdirection and motion. Someone who is just doesn't have that body to really contend and engage and stay engaged and defeat blocks at the second level. That's just not it with him. And sure, okay, maybe the rookie Cedric Gray can be better, but again, that's a rookie. Now, let's talk about Gibbons, because this cat kind of had a breakout year. Is he wonderful as an athlete? No, he's more of kind of a thumper, but he was very, very solid. He was a very, very good in run defense. He was very good at not being compromised in coverage. He was very much a minimal gain guy. And when I say that, it's guys that is like, okay, I may allow like over 80% of the targets my way, but those 4 to 5 yards that they're going to get underneath, those are going to be the only yards that they get underneath. So I like Gibbons. Kind of wish they would do better at the other linebacker position, but it's kind of is what it is. I'm not going to list a third linebacker here because, let's be honest, like 75% of the time, the NFL is in sub packages. Going to the safety room of Monty Hooker and Elijah Molden. Man, Elijah Molden I always thought was going to be a really good slot player when he was coming out of Washington, and he's kind of transitioned more into like a bit of a traditional safety role, and he's fine. Monty Hooker, he's pretty solid when he can stay healthy, but again, nothing that's going to like wow your pants off. Let's go ahead and talk about the depth of this defense, starting with the defensive line, the defensive interior. While they have a lot of interesting names, they really do, like Quinton Bohanna, Keandre Coburn. They come in as big boys at like 330 and 360, but they are relatively unproven. They truly, truly are. So what are they really offering outside of, hey, they got the body type to come in and be a guy that can create piles in the middle of the field? At least, okay, they got the body type, but again, they're unproven. You have Marlon Davidson, who I actually really liked coming out of Auburn many moons ago. He was a bit of a tweener, going from edge player to an interior player, and he's going to come in and he's going to contest TK McLennan, who we saw some good things from him last year, both undersized interior players, but like, while they're interesting names, what are they truly offering in terms of depth? Again, that's kind of relatively unknown, so you're just kind of hoping injury doesn't hit, but I mean, every team's hoping for that. But when you get to the edge position, it's like, okay, this team, when it comes to the pass rush, if your name's not Justin or Jeffrey Simmons, yeah, it's not great. It's just not great. It's not, because you got Arden Key, you got Harold Landry, who I think at best are maybe high end edge twos. Landry's fairly solid as a run defender. Key, you just kind of hope he doesn't get moved or watched out of the run game altogether. But I mean, I guess that's why you have a body like Rashad Weaver, who, I mean, truthfully is probably more built for Mike Vrabel's defense, being a defense that was more flexible in what it did. And I mean, Weaver coming out of Pittsburgh, I thought he was going to be like a base 4-3 guy, and getting drafted here, having to function more in wider alignments. And as a pass rusher, he's been able to make it work. At least go back to 2022. Last year, he kind of got lost in the shuffle because Danico Autry is just kind of an animal. It doesn't matter if he's 34. He's just kind of that guy. So it's like, okay, what is Weaver? What is he truly going to bring to the squad? So what are you going to hope for a guy like Jalen Harrell to emerge as a late day 3, 7th round rookie? Probably not. I mean, they have a toolsy, traitsy guy in Caleb Murphy, who they've been developing, but is he ready to really step up in any meaningful way? Probably not. So yeah, man, when it comes to like this team's ability to like stop the run and to put pressure on the passer, I'm sorry, I got question marks. I truly do. When it, I don't, even the depth after a guy like Murphy, like Thomas Rush, I didn't love him coming out of Minnesota. Khalid Duke, I didn't love him coming out of Kansas State this past season. So like, yeah, man, I just don't love it. I mean, if we're gonna just continue to beat a dead horse, like outside of Gibbons at the second level, who's stopping the run? Who? I know it's not gonna be Kenneth Murray. It definitely ain't gonna be Otis Reese. That dude's like 220. So like Cedric Gray, are you expecting that level of production out of your rookie? That doesn't seem fair. So yeah, when it comes to the front seven, I got some question marks. James Williams, he's very much a developmental guy right now, making that transition from safety to linebacker. And then outside of that, maybe you got guys that can maybe make the team as special teamers like Gifford and Campbell, perhaps Wallow, but Wallow was another guy that was a bit undersized coming out of TCU. Dolman, someone who just kind of played an overhang safety role there at I think it was Nebraska. So yeah, man, I'm just not in love with the front seven. However, this coverage unit I do think is going to be infinitely better with, well, obviously with Snead. You add Awuzie to that. Career's a solid slot drafting. Brownlee, again, love that dude's just his ability as a competitor. When it comes to maybe a few technique things, I think he could be a guy that could be could start, not necessarily start, but could give you some production on the outside or in the slot. They also have Caleb Farley, who, because of a lot of unfortunate circumstances, whether it was like personal tragedy or injury, has caused him not to be able to get on the field quite a bit, being a former first rounder. He's probably in his final year with the squad, unfortunately. Trey Avery, who has actually seen quite a bit of playing time over the course of his career. I think last year was a big down year for him. Yeah, he allowed 6 tutties. Golly, that completion rate, 76%. Yeah, it was a down year. So you're kind of hoping maybe that's your corner 5 or 6 at best. When it comes to the rest of the guys on the squad, Tay Gowan, bit of a journeyman at this point. I really liked him coming out of Central Florida. Just has never really clicked with him. Anthony Kendall. You got few probably practice squad guys in Robert Javier and Gabe, Judy, Lolly. When it comes to the safety group, you best hope no one gets hurt, man. Mike Brown is I liked him coming out of Miami, Ohio. And when I say I liked him as like a late day 3 guy, maybe like a priority UDFA type of player, but he hasn't really had meaningful snaps during the course of his career. Same with Shaheem Carter there. They bring in Keaton Ellis, who honestly could be more of a slot guy coming out of Penn State. So it's like, yeah, you're kind of hoping that no injuries will arise there at the safety group, the safety position. But I feel like a guy like Elijah Molden, playing more of a true safety role. Can he be anything more than average? I actually like Amani Hooker. I think he's a very capable starter, someone who could come in and make plays around the line of scrimmage, a very disciplined player as well, someone who can function deep or in the box or in a split high, or even if you want to kick him into the slot. I actually like Hooker quite a bit. The question will be with Molden, is he anything more than mediocre? Which is probably why I'm a bit lower on the defense. Again, the front 7, ton of questions. The safety group, they can stay healthy, great. I come away higher on the coverage unit, the cornerback room, when it comes to this squad, and that was a part of the team that was kind of a letdown on defense last season. They greatly improved in my opinion. But let's get to why you are here. Let's talk about the 2024 season. I have the Tennessee Titans having the 7th hardest schedule in the NFL. So it's not going to be a cakewalk for the Titans, unfortunately. But when it comes to a ceiling, let's say things click offensively and this offense is really good. Let's say, hey, maybe this defense, their whole their bend don't break mentality does well and they're able to sneak some wins. I think that's capable. As when it comes to a ceiling, I could see them maybe beating like the Bears in week 1. Maybe they sneak one away from the Dolphins, because you did last year, and that's tough to say as a Dolphins fan. Coming on, you get an early bye, unfortunately. But I mean, you get it at home against the Colts, division rival. I could see them winning that. I could see them beating like the Patriots, the Chargers, the Vikings, the Commanders. Let's say you go 3-3 in the division. I think that's fair. That would put the Titans at 9 wins. And I think 9 wins is a fair ceiling to have when it comes to this squad. I truly, truly do. But I think what's more of the reality when it comes to this team is that, yes, Will Levis will have some bumps and bruises. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Like, the ankles were a problem last year, but a lot of that's on the offense. Let's not joke around with the offense. Right tackle still kind of someone going to be good. J.C. Latham is a rookie at left tackle. Let's not act like the problem is solved. And then the defense. I kind of already vented all my concerns when it comes to this defense. So I still like Will Levis. I still like where he's trending. And if he could remain healthy, I still think this offense could do particularly well. But again, it falls back on that defense. I think I currently have them at 6 wins, 6-11 for the season. It's a harder schedule. But I do think there will be a lot of positives coming out of year 1 of Brian Callahan, in particularly where this offense is heading. And they will head into the next offseason with their eyes set on how can we make this defense more productive. And I think that probably starts at the edge rush position. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Tighten up, everybody. And if you want to see more content, you can check out some of the other deep dives I have already done. Or if you want an early look into the 2025 NFL draft class, maybe at edge, Titan fans, ooh, then check out that video down here. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.